Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be doing my June reading wrap up. June was such a good reading month for me. I just feel like I read so much in the summer. And I read like so many good books in the summer. I ended up reading 10 books in the month of June. One of them I did start at the end of May but finished in June, so I counted it towards June. But yeah, I read so many good books. I'm really excited about everything that I read, so I'm excited to take you guys through it all. For the most part, all these books are pretty highly rated. They are all rated 3 stars and above, which I feel like is really good. I'm definitely pretty picky with my rating system. I don't give many books 5 stars, so even if a book is like 4 stars or higher, that's like really, really good, but even 3 stars and higher is good, and it's definitely a book that I would recommend. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So the first book that I read this month was 6 Summers to Fall by C.W. Farnsworth. I got this recommendation on TikTok. I was actually looking for some like summer romance books to read that were on Kindle Unlimited, because when I started this, I was in Florida visiting my dad and I only had my Kindle with me, so I wanted a book that was on Kindle, and this one came up and I hadn't really seen anybody talk about it, but it sounded good, so I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and start reading it. And I actually really liked it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. So this is about Harper, and she goes to the beach house that her family always went to for the first time in like 10 years. And she's on her way to her sister's wedding, and she just happens to stop there for the night, and she runs into Drew, who is the next door neighbor, and she hasn't seen him in 10 years. She always had a crush on him growing up, but like nothing ever happened between them. And she basically tells Drew that she's going to her sister's wedding and she doesn't have a date, and Drew offers to be her date. So the two of them go to her sister's wedding together, and they spend like the week together. And it's just really sweet. Also, Drew is a hockey player, so it's a little bit of a sports romance, although I wouldn't necessarily classify it as that because it doesn't really focus too much on the fact that he's a hockey player. Like, they do mention it and they do talk about how he's like really famous, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily sports romance. But I think because I went into this with pretty low expectations, just because I hadn't heard anyone talk about it, there weren't a ton of reviews on it on Goodreads and stuff, I ended up loving it so much. I really enjoyed the characters. I like that there was this like deeper element to the romance as far as what both of them were kind of going through personally, and then also after the week that they spend together, they then have to figure out like how they are going to continue this relationship, or if they're going to be able to continue this relationship because they live on opposite sides of the country. And I feel like that's just a very realistic element that doesn't get added into a lot of romances. So I really liked it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was so good. Such a fun, easy summer read. Like I said, it's on Kindle Unlimited, so if you're looking for an easy summer read, I would highly recommend it. Next up, I read Darling Girls, and this is about 3 girls that grew up in a foster home together, and basically they get a call that something was found at the foster home that they grew up at, and now they all need to go back. And you get this like back and forth of them growing up at this foster home with their foster mother and kind of the weird things that were happening with her. And then you also get what's going on in their current lives and how everything kind of ties together. And I did enjoy it. I do wish that there was a little bit more of a mystery element throughout. I feel like typically with mysteries or thrillers, you don't get a lot of the characters' backstories, but you got a lot of that in this, which I did enjoy to an extent, but I feel like some of it could have been pared back and then we could have gotten more mystery elements. I also feel like there were parts of their personal lives that they would mention that didn't necessarily seem necessary to the storyline. So I don't know, there were parts of it that I really enjoyed and then parts that I wish were different, but I did still enjoy it. There was definitely like a big twist at the end though that I didn't see coming, like the last little epilogue that kind of shocked me. So I really liked that part. I feel like it was a really good book. It was very immersive. Even though this isn't necessarily themed in the summer, I just feel like this is a good summer mystery because it's not like too intense or too spooky or anything. You're kind of just like learning this story and learning how things unfold with these 3 girls and their foster moms. So I really enjoyed it. Highly would recommend it for the summer if you're looking for a good like summer mystery. Next up, I read Fate of the Sun King by Nisha J. Tooley. This is the 3rd book in the Artifacts of Uranus series. This is a fantasy series, and the 3rd book just came out this month, so I read it and I was so excited. I can't go too much into what this 3rd book is about without giving away a bunch of what happens in this series. I will say if you like fantasies like ACOTAR or Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and you also enjoy like the Hunger Games and things like that. I feel like Nisha takes inspiration from a bunch of different fantasy novels and kind of incorporates them all. So I feel like I find a lot of things that are reminiscent of other fantasies, and I really enjoy that. I highly recommend this series if you haven't read it. I feel like I haven't heard that many people talk about it, which is kind of surprising to me because I feel like it is a series that would be super popular on Book Talk. And the 4th and final book in the series comes out in November, which I'm so excited for. Oh, and I gave that one 4 stars. I don't know that I mentioned that. Then I read The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. This is the 3rd book in the Housemaid like trilogy. I think it's just gonna be a trilogy. I don't think there's gonna be any more after this. I'm not 100% sure though, so don't hold me to that. I will say, I think this was my least favorite. Actually, I know this was my least favorite of the 3. I feel like it went in order from the way they were written was my favorite to my least favorite. I just feel like by this point, the storyline got a little bit too predictable. In this one, Millie, the main character, is older now. It's like 10, 15 years in the future. She's married, she has kids. So the storyline is a little bit different than the first 2 because the first 2 have kind of a similar plot line. So the 3rd one is a little bit different, and I was looking forward to that thinking, okay, maybe it'll kind of change things up a little, but I just felt kind of bored throughout it. There wasn't as much like mystery and suspense. And even though the storyline was changed up a little bit, I feel like it still was just like kind of predictable because you know what has happened in the other 2 books and the tropes of those. So I just felt like it was, I don't know, it was good, it was entertaining. I read it in 2 days. Her books are very fast-paced. I highly recommend any Frida McFadden books if you're looking for a fast-paced thriller mystery book, but this was definitely my least favorite of the trilogy, and I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I feel like I have such mixed opinions on Ali Hazelwood's books. I loved Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. I didn't really enjoy Bride. I just feel like the vampire werewolf thing was not necessarily for me. And then Not in Love, I wasn't really sure what to expect going in. She does have a little disclaimer at the front that says this is more of an erotic romance. It's like her spiciest book. So hearing that, I was like very unsure of what I was getting myself into. And while it wasn't a bad book, there were still elements that I really enjoyed. I mean, I gave it 3.5 stars, but I don't know, like I definitely got bored during a lot of it, and I didn't feel the connection between the 2 characters as much. It definitely felt more like a physical relationship as opposed to one with deeper feelings and emotions, which is what I love out of romance books. This is about Rue, and she is in the STEM world. Her company is getting bought out by Eli's company, basically, and they find this out in a company-wide meeting, and when she sees him standing up there, she's like, oh my god, I went on a date with this guy last night. But not like a normal date. Rue does not like serious relationships or anything like that. She basically goes on dating apps to have one night with someone, and then that's it. Which is what they had the night before, except they didn't spend the night together, like they didn't sleep together. And then she sees him standing up there and finds out that her job could be in jeopardy because of him, but she still has this attraction towards him. They kind of form this like enemies with benefits almost. It's kind of an enemies to lovers, but I don't know. It was cute. There were parts I really enjoyed, but I definitely wasn't my favorite book of Ali Hazelwood's. If you want more of a spicy romance, I think you'll enjoy this, but for me, it just wasn't my favorite. Next up, I read The Romcommers by Catherine Senner. I was so excited to read this because I love Catherine Senner's writing. I love her books. Her books are actually some of the first ones that I read when I kind of started to get back into reading. Like her books before she got super popular. And I feel like now she's become a pretty popular author, I would say, and I was so excited to read this book. First of all, I'm just obsessed with the cover and everything. Like it is so cute, the sprayed edges, like this book is just adorable. I'm obsessed. This book is about Emma, and she's a screenwriter. She pretty much only ever writes rom-coms, and she finds out from her manager or agent that Charlie Yates, who is like this huge famous movie writer, he's written like all the top movies, he is trying to write a rom-com, which is not his typical genre of writing, and he needs help. So Emma's manager basically says, I need you to move to LA for 6 weeks and write with Charlie to finish this rom-com movie. And when she shows up, Charlie didn't know that she was coming and he's really upset. He doesn't want her there. He doesn't think he needs help. So now they're forced to work together even though Charlie doesn't really want to work with her, and they start to form this relationship, and it's really sweet because they genuinely start out as friends first. Like, he's recently divorced. She honestly hasn't really dated much because she's been the caretaker of her dad for the last like 10 years. And so the two of them really are just not looking for anything and they just want to be friends, and then slowly things start to unfold between them. And I just loved this book so much. I was so giddy over certain parts. Like, I was genuinely giggling and kicking my feet. Charlie is an unlikable character at first, but you start to like love him and you start to see this side of him that is so sweet, and he's so sweet to Emma. And I just really, really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend this. I'm pretty sure I read this book in like 2 days, and it's a decently sized book, but I read it in 2 days because I was just so immersed. Like, I genuinely think I sat down and read like the first half of the book in one sitting. Like, it was just so good. I so highly recommend this. Then I read the first Heartstopper book. So if you don't know anything about this, this is a graphic novel series. I have never read a graphic novel before. I didn't think that I was into graphic novels. I didn't think they were for me at all, but I watched Sarah Caroli's videos and I heard her saying how much she loved this, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a try. I ended up buying the first 4 books. Like, I bought the box set because I was like, why not? Like, if she loves it so much, I feel like I always like the books that she likes. So I was like, let's just see. And I loved this so much. It is so sweet. Charlie has been bullied in school for coming out. He doesn't really have a lot of friends. And then he gets sat next to Nick, who is a rugby player. And the two of them kind of spark up this friendship, which then turns into like a very, very sweet love story. And oh my gosh, it is so cute. The little like drawings and stuff when they'll show like the little hearts and them like crushing on each other, it's just so cute and so wholesome. They're super fast paced, like obviously because there's not a lot of words on each page, and sometimes there's no words on a page, so it's very quick to get through. So if you're wanting a book that you can just like quickly read, you have maybe an hour or two to just sit down, like I so recommend these. They're so sweet. I can't wait to get into the rest of the series. I've actually since bought the 5th book, and I want to say the 6th book comes out later this year maybe, or maybe next year. I'm not 100% sure, but I am just absolutely loving this series and I need to watch the TV show now. Then I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and guys, this freaking book, oh my gosh. I give this book 4.5 stars and I love this book so much. Please, 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 I need everyone to read this book. It is incredible. So this is about Eva, and she is a famous author. She's written this like spicy novel series, and her agent has her go to this literary event with Black authors, and there Shane walks in and she is like, oh my god, I haven't seen Shane in 15 years. They met in high school and they had basically 1 week that they spent together in high school and then haven't seen each other since. So you get flashbacks to the week that they spent together, and then you're also getting the timeline now of them rekindling their relationship. Eva is a single mother. They both had a lot of struggles in their childhood. When they met, they were both going through a lot personally, and now they're both successful authors, and they have been secretly writing about each other in each other's books. I read that on the back and I was immediately like, yeah, I need to read this. Like, I need to read this. It is so amazing. So many deep topics are discussed in this book. When I first started reading this, I was like, 100% this is a 5-star book. The only reason I downed it to a 4.5 star is I think that towards the end the pacing changed, and so that's kind of what threw me off. But this book is amazing. There's so many incredible quotes. I need to read this one quote in here because it like truly changed my life. Okay, this is said by Shane, by the way, guys, so if you want, this is said by a man. He said, by virtue of being a woman, she's stronger. Girls are given the weight of the world but nowhere to put it down. I read that and started like tearing up. Why is it gonna make me tear up right now? Like, this book is so amazing. Please read it. Oh my god, it's so good. And the last 2 books that I read this month, I won't talk too much about because they are rereads, and I'm actually filming a whole video rereading some 5 stars that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. But first up, I reread The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read this for the first time in like January of 2023, I want to say. So it's been over a year since I've read it, and it has stood the test of time as my favorite book. Ever since I read it, I have been telling people this is my favorite book. This and Normal People are my two favorite books. They sit on my nightstand. They're the only two books that sit on the top of my nightstand. I literally look at them every single day. Like, this book, it truly changed my life. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. I'm gonna tear up thinking about this book, guys. Like, oh my God. But anyways, if you don't know about this book, I don't know how you don't know. It's literally everywhere. It basically tells the story of Evelyn and her 7 husbands, but there's just so many deeper topics touched. She was a Hollywood starlet in the 1950s, being a woman and the things that she went through. There are actual tear stains on the last few pages of this book because I was uncontrollably sobbing. Again, reading this, the first time I read this was uncontrollably sobbing at the end of the book. And again, I was sobbing uncontrollably at the end, but also there were so many parts towards the beginning of the book that rereading the second time I took note of, and I annotated the shit out of this book. Like, there are annotations on almost every page. Like, I truly love this book with my whole heart. If you have not read it, I'm begging you, if you do one thing in your life, please read this book because it is just phenomenal. And then the last book I read this month was another Taylor Jenkins read. Again, another 5-star reread. This was Daisy Jones and the Six, but I actually ended up listening to this on audiobook. It is on the Spotify audiobooks that are included with a premium membership, and I've always heard such great things about this audiobook, and so when I knew I wanted to do a reread of this book, I might as well listen to the audiobook for the reread. I'm not much of an audiobook person. I don't know why, I just have never really been able to get into them. I feel like the narrator plays a huge part in keeping my attention, and I tend to like zone out. But the way that this audiobook is you get a different voice actor for every single character. And if you've read Daisy Jones and the Six, you know the way it's written is it's all dialogue based. They're basically being sat down and interviewed about the band Daisy Jones and the Six. That was a huge band in the 70s. Not a real band. I think everyone that has read this book, one of the first things they Google was Daisy Jones and the Six a real band, because they feel so real in this writing. So in the audiobook, you get a different voice for each character, which really helped keep me immersed. I honestly just felt like I was listening to a podcast of like a group of friends talking about their experiences and what happened. The last like 40 pages of this book literally blow my mind every time. I say every time, I've only read this book twice, but truly they blow my mind. Like, it is just so good. I'm obsessed with Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you cannot tell, like, I love all of her books, and this is another one where now I need to watch the show. I know I'm crazy. I still have not watched the Daisy Jones and the Six show or like mini series, and I need to get on it. But yeah, that is all for the books that I read in the month of June. I had an incredible reading month. I read some incredible books, definitely found some new favorites, and I'm just so excited to keep reading for the summer. I have so many books planned out that I want to read in the month of July, so really need to get on it because it's already the 5th day of July and I have not finished yet a single book. So I really need to get on it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.